Welcome back to another episode of Meredyth with a Y. I am your host, Meredyth Willits, and today on the podcast, I am joined by Kathryn Henry. She wrote the most beautiful book, A Dime to Say I Love You. She is a current board of director for Lululemon. She's worked with Gap, Levi Strauss, and when she lost her wife, her entire life turned upside down, and she has turned her life into just a story and a show of love and compassion and healing. So please stay with us. Hello, everyone. This is Meredyth with a Y, and I am your host, Meredyth Willits. Today, we are going to go deep, changing lives, and I am giving you the keys to the castle. Kathryn, I am so honored to have you on the show today. I never thought I'd say I have one of the board of directors for Lululemon on my podcast, but yet here you are. So thank you for being with me today.
The world works in mysterious ways.
I know, right? Your book was absolutely beautiful. I felt like I knew you, I knew your dog, I knew your wife. You brought me through the whole journey. I don't know if you know this, but I went through cancer 6 years ago now, I think. And I so wish that I had this for myself and or my husband, because it is such a great walk through how to do it. It really is. So thank you for writing this.
Thank you. It's been, as we kind of discussed earlier, a bit of divine intervention on even the whole experience of writing the book. Been a wonderful process. And I guess I've been just really touched by reading reviews from people who have read it. And I think it's landed how I was inspired to write it. I think just wanting to share. When Lisa and I were going through what we were going through, we had a conversation and discussed how nice it would have been if we could have learned some of these things before. It would have made, things, I don't know that I'd say easier, but it would have made them, probably stopped a few face plants and allowed us to be even more present. But that wasn't our path. But as I got through that, here we sit, and would not have thought, like you said, having a board member on the show, I would not have thought I'd be sitting here as an author of a book, doing a podcast about this. So we both can sit in that space for a bit.
Well, I know one thing that really struck me as I went through the book, and I'm one of those people that read the books. If I have the author on, I'm in it because I want to be in it with the person if I have a conversation with them. And as I was going through it, one of the things that we missed as a family that I know that you really stayed with was therapy and self-care. And that was a huge pillar, I think, that allowed you a space, because as a caregiver, I was holding in my feelings as patient because I didn't want to burden my husband. My husband was holding in his feelings because he didn't want to burden me. And I think that the Western medical hospital system as a whole, it's like they fix you and then you're out in the world thinking like she's fixed. And it's like, there's so much fallout from even one chemo session, even one surgery, etc. And where do you put that? And I love that you touched on all of your different meditation, journaling, etc. What are some other things that maybe you can share with the listeners or viewers right now that you would say, if you are going through a medical situation, please, please, please do this?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is, especially when you say they fix you, is there tends to be a real focus on the physical, right? We fix the body, but there are more aspects to us. There's the emotional, there's the physical, without a doubt. There's the mental, then there's the spiritual. And when you're thinking about treating the whole person, or when thinking about how you care for yourself, broadening the aperture on what you think of as self and what you think of as self-care. So having time for reflection, having time, whatever. It has to be what works for the individual, and
Yeah.
everyone is different. But having time to nurture yourself, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally, intellectually. There are different ways that we heal, and there are different ways that we suffer or that we
Yeah.
have disease. So broadening that perspective and dealing with healing on a level that incorporates more than just the physical.
And also so many caregivers, they tend to get sick too because they're just worn down. I know you had a lot of, I don't know if I want to say a lot of help. I know you had help with a lot of, the care as the days and that weeks went on with Lisa, where she would be like,
Yeah.
go do something, but then there's that fear, like, well, what if I leave? What if I'm not there? Things of that nature, which I'm sure a lot of caregivers do panic. You hear about it all the time. We were at the hospital 24/7 for 3 weeks. I went home for 10 minutes to take a shower, and that's when it happened. Was that ringing kind of in your head when you would leave the house?
Not so much, really. It wasn't. And interestingly, I've experienced a few different folks who have transitioned or passed. Um, and I think in some cases they can have a little bit of a choice in how they're going to go. Like I
Yes, I
really do
agree.
believe Lisa did. And
Yeah,
I think sometimes it can be, um, someone can't let go until the loved ones have left.
yeah,
But for me with Lisa, that wasn't really an issue. It was more, I was with her at all times by both of our choices, when she was in hospital in treatment or getting MRIs and CTs, because we were just, we were the dynamic duo. We were in it together and it was our
yeah,
battle. Um, and when she'd send me off, like I knew it was her way of caring for me. She's like, you
yeah,
need to go. You need to go do something. You need to go to your board meetings, or you need to go play some golf. You need to just go do something. Because if nothing else, it's a gift to she would say it's a gift to me, because
yeah,
you come home and you'll talk to me about things. I don't want us living in the space of me dying 24/7. She would say that. We're
yeah.
not
I
living in.
just, I just was actually thumbing through to make sure I had my, all my everything's, and actually saw that quote. I don't want to be living in this 24/7, and it's so true. It becomes. I remember I went to this girl invited me to lunch, and she had had breast cancer. And she just starts in on all of her experience and everything that was going to happen to me. And I remember just sitting at this lunch, like, I could probably grab my purse and run out of here. It was
Yeah.
like, I deal with it. I don't want to deal with it at lunch, or like you, everywhere you go, like, how's your treatment? And it's just like, dude, I'm at a party. Like, I want to not be
Oh,
talking about this because it does become your 24/7. Going back to you, um, when you were younger, you talk about going to a home in Kansas, a religious home in Kansas because of some difficulties that you were dealing with as a child. Can you just talk about that for a minute?
yeah. Well, it took me a while to realize the damaging effects of what I went through as a young child. I was
Yeah.
sexually molested. I dealt with it in large part, and my mom had been very, very ill too. We nearly lost her and had a pretty intense experience around that, just spending a whole summer when I was young, and in the basically in the day ward for the intensive care unit,
Uh,
because we could only see her, periodically, and met people, made friends with people, and people who lost their loved ones. It was just really a profound kind of thing to go through at like 11 years old. And
yeah.
that on top of the other abuse, I became an abuser of myself. Just had a lot of shame, had a lot of low self esteem, didn't know how to deal with those experiences. And as a result, I made an attempt on my own life.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I was unsuccessful. But it was serious enough. And after other incidents as well that my parents were dealing with, they just didn't know what to do. And they were deeply rooted in Christian beliefs. And my grandparents had supported an agency in the Midwest. And they sent me there to see if they could fix me. And it was profound because this is as a young teen. Now I'm plucked from my environment. I'm plucked from everything I know. And all of a sudden now I'm placed in an environment where a lot of the kids there were wards of the state. Some had been dumped there by their parents at like 4 years old, experiences that I couldn't even fathom. Like
Yeah.
I knew I had had challenges, et cetera, and things that I was dealing with, but it ultimately served probably in some unhealthy ways for sure, but in some very healthy ways to also open the aperture on my life. And I was like, wow, you know what? I got a lot of stuff to be grateful for. And
Yeah.
I have someplace else that I can get to if I can just convince these people to let me go. And that experience, I mean, it definitely put me on a path of self-sustaining in some unhealthy ways. Like I don't need anybody. I can take care of myself and I don't need anybody, which I've had to work through that to allow others to care for me. And I'm still
Yeah.
working on that one. But yeah, it was a very it was pretty profound experience to go through at that age.
When I was reading it too, it was like, if I can just do these things, I can get out of here. Like you were very
Yeah.
aware of what you needed to transform yourself into or answers you needed to give, and then you knew like, okay, then I will get out of here and then I can go from this space. There's certain people I have on this show um where it's almost like they get I don't know how else to say it, but like they get it that like they're even though you're only 15, it's like there's these moments where you go, I'm going to get something out of this. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. Like even everything with your wife, even everything with Kansas, where when you were put in the home, um, and that's how and it was the first time in my life ever at 40 something with cancer. It's the first time in my life that I said, okay, I'm not going to go through this and get nothing from it. I feel like you kind of are a person, maybe it was 15, maybe it was after that, where you started going, all right, I got to get something out of this. Like, I'm not just going to go through this for this, and just come out on the other side the exact same person. You seem to be one of those people that like lived and learned, watched almost kind of from way outside and said, I'm taking something from this or it's for nothing.
Yeah, that is very fair. And I would add that in addition to taking something from it, there was very much a conscious mentality there that said, I have choice. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to be a victim here. I am not going to let these people, run my life. I am going to pull my, as the saying goes,
The
pull myself
proverbial.
up by my bootstraps, whatever. But it was a moment of, hey, you know what? F this. I'm not doing this. I am not doing this, and they're not doing this to me. I am going to do everything I can in my power. And sometimes that meant like really sucking up the ego. Like I
Yeah.
had to call these people mom and dad. I had to do things that were like, I got in trouble if I did my homework because that was actually a privilege. You did your chores, and so there were I had to suck it up more than once and lose a lot of battles to win the war. But it taught me at that young age some humility. It taught me a lot. And I
Yeah.
chose to, instead of being um, belittled by the experience or allowing the experience to weaken me, if you will, um, I used it as strength, and sometimes probably in not so healthy of ways, right? I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes there's some ego that comes in like, oh yeah, I'll show them. I'm smarter than them,
Yeah.
which is not true and just not
But
really.
I'm sure it's still a coping mechanism. Like there's a part of you that also needed to be not crushed. So it's kind of like, which side of this am I going to pick? Am I going to be like, okay, I got this? Or am I going to be like, they know more than me? There's a part
Yeah,
of it that you kind of have to have a little bit of negotiation with the brain there to survive it and not be crushed, like you said.
without a
Yeah,
doubt.
it's amazing. When I was reading and going through that last day with Lisa,
Hmm.
I have to say that it was a surprise. I know that sounds dumb, but like, in the book, this is what's happening. We already know the quote end of the story, if you will. We know how this ends. But I was not surprised for how her last day was going to go. And as a reader, I literally lost my breath. I
Mm.
did. The way you described it, I was just like, I felt myself grasping, like, no, no, not, just making me emotional. Not
Yeah.
yet. You really take the reader to that moment of not yet.
Yeah. And I was really caught off guard because even though we had been through 8 years of facing it and knowing,
Yeah.
like, this is gonna happen, this is happening, in that moment, I didn't expect that or
Yeah.
even really have a conscious thought that, "Oh, this could be the last day," or that it was just like, "Okay, what are we doing today? We're gonna watch
Yeah.
the wedding video," you know?
Yeah.
And I held her hand, and it was just this beautiful, beautiful moment, and then I thought, she'd be happy if she got a shower because you could count the quality of a day by how many showers you needed. So let's see if they can come. And then they called me before I had a chance to call. It was just these, in hindsight, like in the moment,
Yeah.
it wasn't anything other than what was happening, but it was like she took me through that whole day. Like she
Yeah.
literally, like she was like,
The
okay,
conductor. She
this
conducted the
is,
day
and
somehow.
she knew me. Like we would have conscious conversations about different things. And I would just make commitments like the day after we get back from vacation. Yeah, we get back from vacation and then the next day go back to work. She'd be like, Kathryn, don't you think we should get home and have a day? Like, no, no, I mean, we're on vacation. It doesn't, I think you might want a day. Like, why don't you think about how that's going to feel? And I just didn't tend to do that. I was so live in the moment and just let things be as they're going to be. And she was much more planful and thoughtful and could
Yeah.
literally, because of all her visualization work she did with being an Olympic caliber athlete, like she would do visualization of her competitions. And she was so strong mentally. Some of it wore off, not enough,
Yeah.
some of it,
Yeah.
but yeah,
A
I think
good
that day was so profound, and she left me in the best, care she possibly could have.
yeah. I love in the book you have the way the font is, it's your journal entries.
Mm,
And you're speaking to her in a lot of them, thanking her for helping you get through the day or asking for help, here and there. And say, "Hey, I did this today. I went and punched the punching bag, or I went outside and I drank my water," and all those things. Um, do you ever go back to those, or were they just for then?
I go back to them, and as a matter of fact, the book, since I've written it, I go back to it. I'm in the process now. The audiobook is being released very soon. I've recorded it, and the
Nice.
whole process of recording it and then listening to the book in my voice. I thought it would be weird. Like I didn't think I would. I just thought it would be weird because there have been
Yeah.
times where I've heard my voice on things like a podcast, and it's like, that's what I sound like.
I know.
What, and but there, for some reason, the way the book resonates, and the way I experience it auditorily, through my voice. And in particular the
Yep.
journaling, that was, I don't do as much like writing, but I still talk to her. And
Yeah.
sometimes I'll just have things, just she'll make me laugh, and it'll just be like, yeah, 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 I hear you. Like
Yeah.
there's just this kind of sense of her energy is still very much, comes to me.
Yeah.
And I think, the point of that is, it's easy to think like things have to be big, big, big things, but it's the little things. It's like the things I miss the most are just like cooking dinner in the kitchen and, dancing or laughing or listening to music or, the dog doing something silly. Those were, and we did some trips and we did other things and those were special as well. But it's those little moments that really can be transformational.
Yeah. I know with all of your struggles as a young teenager, you actually ended up getting your GED. And it's like the accidental CEO, right? Um, and I don't think many people would realize that you, without knowing, they their GED, but also was accepted to the master's program at Harvard. I'm forgetting what that was.
Executive
Yeah.
MBA. Yeah.
Yeah. I just
Lisa
I
and I,
mean,
she would
life
laugh
had other
about it.
plans.
Yeah, life, sometimes
Yeah,
sometimes you just have to roll
it's
with
too
it.
much. Yeah, and I mean, it's a testament when you because I know right now there's a lot of argument and talk about, do we need college? Is it more about trade school? Like, what's the focus, right? Looking at your journey, just personally, outside of the book, but looking at your journey as a kid and then, going through the ranks, do you make decisions or talk to people about hiring non-college degree individuals? I mean, just as a professional?
I did, without a doubt. I mean, now I'm not in the active hiring, and I think there are some shifts. I think people are becoming more open to the value of the trades. Like,
Yeah.
I think both are wonderful.
Yeah.
I feel like the education that I got through the trades was, in the trenches. So, it's like, if you look at the army or something, or look at the armed forces, you can still get to officer ranking by starting in a foxhole.
Yeah.
It's a different path, or you can go into, the West Point or wherever, and start as an officer.
Yeah.
There are different ways, there are different paths. Um, that was my path, and I'm thankful for it, because now, as I reflect back, like, I can have a way different conversation to people that are on the front lines, like technicians, or things along, or people that I have the pleasure of, like, they come and they're working on my air conditioner or something at my house, and it's so, like, yeah, I've been where you're at, like,
Yeah.
it's just different. Of course, I haven't been to college, so I can't have a conversation with someone about the sorority or something like that. I can have a conversation, but it'd be based on assumptions. So I certainly try to open people's eyes to, there are a lot of different ways to get places in life,
Yeah.
a lot of different ways to learn and grow. Um, and I think the trades are going to have a little bit more of maybe a little bit more of a resurgence, because
Yeah.
we need tradespeople. That is, AI is not going to
Yeah.
take that work away. It's
Yeah.
not going to run your cable. It's not going to do your electrical. It's not going to build your house. It's not going to paint your house. It's not going to fix your roof.
Yeah.
AI can displace a lot, but the trades, are not going to get displaced on the front lines.
Yeah. When you were actively working and dealing with illness, and all the cancer therapies and all that stuff with Lisa, did you feel that push and pull of like, I need to be here, but I need to be there? Like, I know a lot of people deal with that. Um, how did that impact like your decision making for the Harvard opportunity or taking a job? Like a lot of people have these, they can't not work.
Yep.
Um, how does that like play out and how do you make those big, huge decisions?
Well, the first big decision was, and the Harvard decision was really part of it, was when Lisa was first diagnosed, we both were personal trainers, we had left our corporate jobs. And so I already had the space to be there for her and to be there for the
Mhm.
surgery and all of that. And once we got through that and she was, in remission, the opportunity to go to work for Lulu came along, and she supported me all the way. And it was great because we needed the money too, right? It's like life had changed, and we had
Yeah.
medical bills, we had all kinds of things to deal with. So it was wonderful to take that job, and it was a gift of a lifetime. Frankly, it is still a wonderful company, and I'm thrilled to be a part of the company as a director now. Um, But when I was supposed to go to Harvard, Lisa was going through quarterly tests and screenings, and I had transitioned all my duties to go to Harvard because I had to live there for a few months for the
Yeah.
program. And that is when 2 weeks before I was set to go, that's when the test came back and the cancer had returned and was spread many places in her body. And at that time, frankly, I just felt that was a gift from divine. It's like, as much as I really wanted to go to Harvard, I was excited about it. Numerous other executives in the company had gone. And I knew it would be a life-changing experience for me to do that.
Yeah.
There was never a question, though, that that wasn't where I was supposed to go. Like,
Yeah.
and it was really, it was like, okay, thank you, divine, for clearing all this off my plate, because now I don't have to worry about work. I've already transitioned my responsibilities for the company's not planning on having me there for 3 months. So I can just totally dedicate myself to instead, to the battle. And the company was, of course, fantastic about you do this, you need to do that, very
Yeah.
much supportive and understanding without question. And then, you know, because I transitioned my responsibilities, I still kind of consulted with the company and made the exit more permanent,
Yeah.
um, in order to deal with what were facing.
Because you were chief
And
information officer then, right?
I was chief information officer, and I also ran global distribution and logistics for
Yeah.
the company. So I had a very big job.
Yeah.
And I was in succession for, to take on more responsibility with the company, just for self-development, for personal development.
Do you think by that point, you've already been through a whole lot with Lisa by this moment, right? There's so many people that would not have maybe handled that kind of celestial no. We all know the people that go, "You've ruined my plans, this whole," like, no matter what you like, there's so many people like, "Yes, I need to be here for this person. However, in the bathroom, I'm pissed, I'm mad, I'm resentful, I'm angry." And as we know, this turns to things like alcoholism and drug abuse and illness, within self. How or where were you in your healing practice at that moment? Because 99% of the people would have been kicking and screaming in the bathroom, right? Where you're just like, "Oh, this is universe clearing my path," right? Like, because that's where I'm at, but most people are not there yet. What had transpired to that point to get you to, "The universe is great. Here, my whole
It
Harvard
sounds
thing is
so.
off the table." Right. And joy,
I
peace,
can
and
see
love,
so many people
kumbaya.
just going, "Oh, I
Yeah.
can't take this." Uh, and it's not as fruity as it sounds either. Um, my words. Um, I think because of the experience I had as a youth and the experience going through Kansas and then the healing from that, and then some other things that, with the other family member that had been molested as well, and being able to help with that. And then, frankly, if I reflect back on, there was a point in both Lisa and my careers when we walked away from our corporate jobs and we were pursuing things that really mattered to us. They were more physical pursuits. She was getting back to competing track and field. I was pursuing golf, which I just absolutely loved, and became a personal trainer. And I had been a yogi, and I was very much on my spiritual journey, which had started at some level in Kansas,
Mhm.
and continues to this day, and will continue until I no longer take breath, and then will continue probably in some other way. Um, so I was far enough along that I was making decisions that weren't necessarily what were driven by material pursuits and gain, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I went to being a personal trainer, and I left a job where I was the CIO at for international at the Gap, and I left to go work in a pro shop. And most people were like, including Lisa, "You're crazy. Why are you doing this?" It's like, you know what? I just feel like this is what I need to do. And if I don't do it now in my life, I'm never going to have a chance to do it. And so I was already living life a little bit in that way, like trying to be more open to taking the experiences that are presented to me and having a broader willingness to explore what they might be trying to how I might be being directed, or what might be the positives from it versus just the negatives. Because really, it kind of comes down to that. Like when we
Yep.
set our sights on this is where I have to go, and we have no wiggle room that says, unless I get hit by a car, or
Right.
unless that bridge is out and I can't take that route, like I had become a little bit more in that space of like, yeah, I'm going to set goals. I'm going to drive. I'm going to, perform. I'm going to, challenge myself. And then I'm going to let go of the results as best as I can
Yeah.
and try to be in flow with life. And now that's very much just how I kind of live. There's still so much learning and so much growth that goes on every day,
Right.
but it's way more of just the way I live, especially after what has happened with Lisa. But even
Yeah.
then, because of the prior experiences, we were largely kind of living that way anyway.
Yeah.
Even
I
the
call
job
that
Lululemon, when that job came to me, it was like meant to be. It was just every step along the way. It was like, I can't live in Canada, but you know what? I'm just going to check this out, see what it's like, check out the company. We did it together, went into the stores. It was like, wow, I can't believe this place even exists. And then, okay, we'll take one more step, went up to Canada, met with the CEO and the executive team. And it's like, wow, these people this is amazing. Like, and Lisa was like, we could figure this out. And it was
yeah.
just, but it was like just taking one step at a time. It wasn't crossing all the bridges
Yeah.
and putting myself in like, oh, you're going to be living in Canada in Vancouver, and Lisa's still getting, not treatment, but tests. How are you going to do that? We didn't even go there. I was like, you know what? Let's just go through the door and see what's on the other side.
Yeah.
We don't have to
I
make a big
call
decision now.
I call that listening to like the whisper where it's just like, "Hey, try this over here." And I try to look at everything as a lesson that you can take something
Yeah.
from, but also a blessing. And if you could kind of spin it that way, you start to parse through the noise and see the reason and the logic and the maybe and the here we goes, and it gets less scary and more like I always tell people hope keeps you like kind of going in that kind of moment, right? But hope is always, this is the way I see it. I hope I get the job at Lululemon. Well, what if it's not the right answer for you and then you don't get it? Then you feel like a failure or that you've lost something or something horrible has happened. Where if you're just like, I don't know what's going to happen. Let's see where this goes. If it's meant to
Exactly.
be, then it's less squeezy, it's less negative because if you don't do this, then it's saving you for something over there that it is in line. I tell my kids, well, you just got spit out. It wasn't in your frequency. It wasn't aligned
Yeah.
with where you're supposed to go next. So that thing spit you out. And if you stay in the frequency that you want to, instead of being angry and resentful and kicking and screaming in the bathroom, like I said, then more of you will come to you and what is meant for you. Um, you also talk about keeping a promise to Lisa.
Mm.
And I know a lot of people um, make promises and then it slowly goes by. Can you talk about the promise that you made Lisa?
Yeah. She, especially as it was getting closer to the end, where like there were less treatment options. So, and things were getting more difficult, and her health was declining more and more. We had multiple very direct conversations, and reflecting back on our earlier days where, there had been, be it substance abuse of just like for coping. It's like, I'm going to have a drink or that kind of thing. And, that was no longer, something that we did for coping, whether
Yeah.
it be alcohol or whether it be any other, self harming. And I'm not saying alcohol. I mean, alcohol is a poison. I still drink it periodically, but but there's ways to abuse things in order
Yeah.
to alleviate, we think at least, alleviate suffering. And so we had conversations, and she said, you know what, I just have this fear that I'm going to die and you're just going to be laying on the couch and just not able to get up. And I was like, that's fair.
That's
She said, I
fair.
need, yeah, like that's fair. And we'd had conversations and she made me promise. She was like, you know what? I can't let go. Like I can't stomach the idea of us not, being a family. But worse yet, I can't stomach the idea of me going and then this fear that you're going to just
Fall
be
off the end.
crushed and fall
Yeah.
off the edge. And I made a promise to her. I said, I promise you, honey, I won't do that. I don't know
Yeah.
how I'll get through it, but I promise you that I won't do that. So you can, and I have had to go back to that moment, especially in the early days. I had to go back to that multiple times. And sometimes that was all that kind of got me through a moment when
Yeah.
I just didn't want to feel what I was feeling. I didn't want to be doing what I was doing. I didn't, I wanted to sit in it. And sometimes you have to sit in it. Like sometimes you do. You have to grieve. You have to feel because you can't just stuff it away and pretend it's not there. So there's this fine balance between how you can deal with things and face them and process them while not letting them take control and ownership over you and drive you to places that will be harmful.
Yeah.
And that promise that I made, that she insisted on, was a huge gift that she gave to me as well, because she knew I wouldn't, not keep my promise.
Yeah. Sometimes those little things are what bring us through. I remember when my grandmother, totally different, I get it. When I was leaving my grandma's room at a nursing home, she was only there for like 3 minutes, I swear. And I was walking out the door and she said, "Meredyth." And I was like, "Yeah." She said, "Go live a good life."
Hmm.
And I said, "I will." And that was the last time I saw her, spoke to her. And there are so many times I reflect on, am I living a good life? Or like, am I honoring that direction from a 93-year-old woman who did the last day I saw her? She's like, "You know what, Meredyth? Don't live to 93. You can't get on the stripper pole anymore." I was like,
Maybe you will, though. You never know.
who knows? But I was like she was so with it and she had so much like live a good life. She lived through all the things, by 93. And I really try to like my cousin who's a month and a half younger than me passed away from cancer. And when I go on my walks, I quit drinking 2 years ago. All of those things, it's like, do it for Stacy because she can't anymore. You know what I mean? And I think that so often when we
Yeah.
really do hold those people that we love and go, I'm going to honor that. Like, I'm really honoring their words and their direction and that they can't and that they're not here anymore. It does empower you for the things that you feel are literally impossible. You feel they're literally impossible and they become possible somehow through that. Through that love, I guess.
Yeah. And I really do believe that if if we're stuck in grief, if we're stuck in that, downward cycle, um, if we really think about the loved ones that we're grieving, and what would they really want?
Right.
Like, do they
Right.
want us in that cycle? Like,
Yeah.
seriously, do they? And sometimes that's hard for someone to process because they can't get past the pain of the loss.
Or they feel
But
like they're bearing homage or paying homage to, like, if I
by
laugh and
suffering,
smile,
yeah,
yeah, then I'm not sad enough then. And I will have clients
yeah,
or people that message me on social media and they are suffering for like it's been a decade, almost 2 decades. They've lost a child, which unimaginable. And I'm like, "Trust me, they are fine. They are
yeah,
begging you to go do something fun.
yeah,
Like you're still here. Like don't sit at the, cemetery or whatever." And I have a picture of Grandma O'Brien and like, I allow myself one day of sadness a year. Like I wallow in it, even if it's just for 15 minutes. I go deep. I feel the carpeting in her family room. I imagine sitting with her. I'm the oldest grandchild, so I had the most
mm,
time with her. And like I allow myself to go to those deep, sad, missing her. And
yeah,
then I go, okay, I know she's on the other side of the window. Like she's right there. Like you're being silly, but I do allow myself that grief. And I think you're right. Like, you have to have that balance of where you let yourself, but then it's also, I'm not gonna choose to suffer.
Right. Yeah, I remember going into a grief group, soon after her transition, and I never went back. Um,
I wouldn't have either. You're
it was I was like, "This is
yeah,
not gonna help," and
yeah.
it was because the energy was and I like a month or 2 after her transition,
Mhm.
um, but there were individuals that were just years. And it was like this was the place they came, and maybe it was good for them, so I'm not judging that, it just
Yeah,
wasn't right for me, but the energy was all about talking about all I just can't even do this anymore, and I just can't get out of bed, and sometimes it's like this or it's bad, it's just bad, 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 and I was sitting there thinking, my wife would be so pissed at me if I was like she'd be like,
you're like,
"Hey,
how do I
you
get my
know what?"
person run?
Yeah, it was like and in large part, it was of honoring her for
Yeah.
me. Like I knew, like she told me not years, but at least during the year in her last year on earth, um, like you need to go meet somebody. You need to and I'm
Yeah.
still not. It's been almost 8 years and I haven't yet, met the right person or whatever that has made that, something I'm open to, but hasn't made it the right thing. But the point is that she was like, you need to go live your life. Like you need to do all the things. You need to live a big, full life. Like your grandmother said to you, go live a good life. Go live a
Go
big
live a
life.
good life.
You have things to offer. Go offer
Yeah.
them.
Go
And
do it
and
all.
and do everything you can do, be everything you can be. And that what, I just think if people can still you can honor and grieve and feel, and you have to. Like you can't just walk away and pretend like something didn't happen. A loss
Yeah.
didn't happen. And the loss of a child, I can't even like that to me is just losing a spouse. All of it though, they're
All
not
of
they're
it.
not different levels. Your grandmother, your parent, maybe yeah, we know that's going to happen or we expect in our lifetime that will likely happen. So maybe that changes it a little, but
Yeah.
it's still loss. It's
Yeah.
still grief.
You
Um,
have you have this thing in your book, um, AGFO, and this is
AFPO.
or
Yeah,
another freaking growth
yeah.
opportunity. And it's like, it's so true. You're like, Another freaking growth opportunity. Like, I can't anymore." And it's so true. Like, I feel like, especially right now in the world, just like
Oh,
collectively,
yeah.
it's like,
I
"Are we
did
good
listen to
yet,
your
God?"
October. I listened to your October 2nd podcast.
Yeah, it's just like, "Are we
That was
done?"
full of Octos.
I just can't anymore. Like, I'm so
Yeah.
done with learning. Um, and it's so true. Like, I always say you never learn anything on the beaches of Turks and Caicos. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes it takes the squeeze because you're just
Maybe you
floating.
learned about sunscreen.
Yeah, sunscreen and, salt water and all that good stuff. But it is so true. Like, but you do need to take
Yeah.
a breath and have fun. And as the kids say, touch grass. And
Yeah.
it's a lot, but I do believe, and I have a feeling you do too. I do believe that if you buckle down and you say, whatever the hell this is, I'm going to learn from it. And I'm not going to keep repeating it. Like, you know how you have the girlfriend who
Yeah.
dates the same guy
Right.
over and
Right.
over and over. And it's just like,
Why does this happen to me?
right. Or they have the same shitty job, or they have the same conversation, or the same whatever. Right. And you're like, hello? Like, anymore, I don't know about you, but if I feel even remotely like uncomfortable or angry, or if I'm like, okay, wait, my buttons are getting pushed. What am I doing right now that needs healed?
Right.
What
Right.
what what is the growth moment? Because I should feel balance. I should feel at the very least content, usually, right? And so if I'm not, there's probably a growth moment
Right.
happening. So I'm going to pay attention to it. Are you
Yep.
there where you're like, uh-oh, something's happening. I
Oh,
need to learn
totally.
something? Yeah.
Yeah. And AFCO was a great way for us to just, when things were just going a crazy way, or we'd get some bad news or something we judged to be bad news, which is a whole nother thing. Like,
Oh, that's yeah.
sometimes you think it's bad, and then later you're like, actually, that was good.
Yeah.
The AFCO thing was just so helpful to just like laugh. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, another growth
Here we
opportunity.
go.
And we've had conversations, Lisa and I did, about, life being just, it's an educational experience. Like, this whole life is an opportunity to come and learn and grow. And there are, at least my belief, there are lessons we're meant to get. And so things are going to present themselves to give us those lessons. And if we don't get the lessons, they'll keep presenting themselves until you do get the lesson. So
Yeah.
I kind of try to look at things like, okay, what's my lesson here? Like, what am I, supposed to learn? And when we reflected on, a lot of experiences, some folks maybe go through life and it looks more like a silver spoon in the mouth, and, everything is just easy. I actually don't think that's easy, personally. Um, I We used to joke, we're in the PhD program on life, so we just
Yeah.
have a few more classes to go through, and we
Sure.
would just laugh about it. It's like, well, we haven't gotten our PhD yet. We still have some more, and
Yeah.
probably will never get the PhD in life. But that was that was how we would look at it, because it's just so much more pleasant. And the more, I'm a real believer in opening the aperture on life and seeing life through other people's eyes, or going and having experiences that broaden your perspective. And one of the books that really impacted me, that I read quite a long time ago, was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And to read this body of work, this individual's experience, and to think about the unthinkable things that that individual endured, um, yet somehow still persevered in
Yeah.
bringing, love and healing and, teaching into the world. Like, well, that's a pretty high bar. So all of a sudden, the stuff I'm going through is really not so bad, is it? So
Yeah.
broadening that aperture, seeing things, I think I find to be helpful.
I think too, like I grew up Episcopalian, stand up, sit down, kneel, fight, fight, fight. So I grew up with that, like searching and forlorn and like begging and pleading for whatever it was that I needed or wanted, and praying. And, it came from a very helpless inside feeling where I was needing to be a certain way, see things and be a certain way. And then if I was lucky, then I would be blessed. And then I would have like, there was like boxes to check, wherein I feel like being and incorporating spirituality where, the God lives within, Christ consciousness, it's here. It's all like not happening to me, but it's happening for me. I think that perspective that you carry, where you go, okay, lesson, okay, blessing, look for it. Okay, learning experience, okay, look for it, figure it out, look for it, instead of like pleading and searching and hoping. Do you think that transition more towards spirituality, maybe away from the religion where there's like a person between you and God, or like rules between you and God? Do you think that has really shifted or allowed you to kind of roll with the punches also?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I too was raised in a pretty strict kind of, you know, damnation. You're going to hell if you do certain things. And I also experienced a lot of just people that would behave one way on Sunday, but then differently during the week. So it didn't add up for me. And because of the teachings that were much more prescriptive, like, you need to believe this, you just believe this, and this is how it is, which
Yeah.
didn't work for me. It
You're
put me
like,
in a
I'm
place.
believing. I'm
I'm
really
like,
believing.
well, I was like, this is not like, I mean, it literally was contributing to why I tried to take my life, because
Yeah.
I thought for sure I was damned to go to hell.
Yeah.
Um, so so that opened me up to, I got into Zen, I got into meditation, I got into Buddhism, I guess, more from just the perspective of curiosity. Well, like, wait a minute, there are a lot of people on this earth, and there are a lot of different ways of believing. And I was far more attached to like Jesus's teachings. Like, I'm all in on that. I'm all in on that. Those are
Same.
wonderful. But what was wrapped around that, by man, by human, mostly men, um, that didn't work for me. So going back to teachings of Buddha, teachings of Krishna, teachings of Jesus as the core, and then the practices in particular of like the Vedic sciences and things from the Bhagavad Gita or things from Buddhism, things from Zen, that were much more like, we all have God within, like
Yeah.
divine innervates everything that exists. Like that became very freeing, and also became very much like a challenge. Like, how do you live a Christ-like life?
Yeah.
And how do you get beyond the ego callings of, things that would not have us serve others, not have us invite in the stranger, not have us help the poor, like that's really like compassion and love. Those are the teachings of how we're supposed to live our life. It's
Yeah.
not in judgment, it's not with hate, it's not with, you know, war. That's just not what and that's not what I believe we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so it did kind of come full circle though. Like I haven't the organized dogmatic religion with, man being white man being superior to everyone and everything in service to that, that doesn't really work for me. But Jesus's teachings, and the core of that spirituality and that divine is so important, and it's even more important, I think, for us now than it probably ever has been. Well,
Yeah.
certainly in my lifetime, which is meaningless in many ways, right? When we think about how long humankind has walked the earth.
Yeah. It's all so much. And I think that with things like podcasts and social media and the exchange of information and um, having language, like you would have had to read just the right books or be experienced in just the right college class or whatever, just the right psychiatrist. And I think with the exchange of information today and information sharing on all these different platforms, so many people would not maybe be introduced to you and your book and like go, wait a minute, this makes a lot of sense. This is helping more so than kneeling and praying every single night or whatever it is, or struggling or whatever it is. I think that this is allowing all people to have access as long as you have access to the internet. I know I've said that before and people are
Yep.
like, not everyone has a phone. And I'm just like, okay, well, the majority of people,
Right.
it's giving more people access to language, and ideas and other alternatives to feeling helpless and to being kind of on the outside of these types of conversations. It's inviting everyone in to sit down kind of in front of the fire and talk about other ways, right, that
Yeah.
they might not have been privy to. Have you made it, by the way, to India?
Oh, yeah, more than
Okay.
once.
Okay, I was going to say when
Rishikesh is a favorite place, and Kerala is wonderful. That's I did a wonderful Ayurvedic retreat for 21 days there, which was like literally 21 days with no TV, digital detox on the Arabian Sea, clean eating, no caffeine or alcohol, and treatments and meditation and yoga every single day. Some people might think that sounds terrible. I thought it was fabulous, and
heaven.
can't wait to do it again.
Well,
And
if
I've
you
been
ever
to
want to,
Dharamshala, which is I had the honor earlier this year of going on a trip to Dharamshala, and I met His Holiness the Dalai Lama, which was pretty amazing.
yeah. Well, if you ever go back, I highly recommend Varanasi. And I
I've
have the
been there.
oh gosh,
Yes,
isn't it just life-changing? I
yeah.
mean,
It's crazy though. Did you do the
it's
RT at the 6 o'clock RT?
with all the was that with all the they do it every single day with the
Yep.
whole everyone goes
Yep.
to the water. Yes,
Yes.
yes. It's
Yes.
a lot. It's the whole thing is a lot. The whole thing is overwhelming,
Yeah.
but it's so worth it. Like it's
Yeah.
and I told our guide, who I'm still friends with to this day, I'm like, tomorrow I'm gonna go to an ashram. He's like, no, you're not. He's like, I'm gonna take you where the people are and we're gonna go get, do this and do that. And I'm like, okay. He's like, you're not allowed to go to an ashram. I'm like, she's like, you're just gonna be doing yoga with a bunch of white people. That's not what
Yeah.
India is about. I'm like, all
Yep.
right, done. Thanks, Prakash.
I
Um,
I have a good
yeah,
friend that's Indian and lived in Bangalore, and so we had been communicating for years. He's my spiritual brother. Because of work, we came together and we were working, together. And I finally took a trip, and he and I went to Mysore. We were met in Bangalore. We went up to Rishikesh. We went to Varanasi. It was spectacular, and to see it through, a friend who was born and raised there was pretty amazing.
that's awesome. Well, I
Yeah,
will have to say, Grandma O'Brien would say that you are living a good life and you are doing all of the things because maybe you have to, maybe because it's just survival or a promise, but whatever it is, you're doing the do. And A Dime to Say I Love You, A Journey of Love, Loss, and Spiritual Awakening by Kathryn Henry is just, if you are going through, have gone through, are existing in life and plan on being a human for another few years, this book. And you also have spaces for journaling in the book, too, might I add, where you ask people to kind of go inward. You give them a little bit of a meditation, and then there's space to journal right after the chapter. And it's like every single chapter. So this
yeah,
is an analog experience. And it sounds like you have your audiobook coming out, but if you want an analog experience that is tactile and you can go in and write right in the book, this is a great opportunity for you to kind of maybe change the way you see the most difficult of days changing you for the better.
Hmm.
Changing
Thank
you
you.
for the better. Yeah, it's
Thank you
really,
for
really
the kind
beautiful.
words. It was written, I believe, with some divine intervention and inspiration. I really do believe that, and with a lot of intention for the reader. It was just to say, here's not
Here's it.
necessarily the answers. I'm not saying anything in there is the answer
Yeah.
or is right or wrong, but here's something that is grounded in a real life experience, and shares just some of the things that help me to come to see life the way I do.
Yeah.
And if that can be helpful to anybody, and so far the reviews have been wonderful. People getting something out of it of value, then it made the whole process worth it.
Yeah, yeah, which is a big thing to say, by the way. But thank you, Kathryn, so much for just being here with us today, the listeners, the viewers, myself. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. And I have to say, my 16-year-old, almost 17-year-old, is really in line with Lululemon and loves the product. So you're doing
Fantastic.
some you're doing some right things here. And my son loves the shorts. My husband loves the pants. So we're all in. So they're doing things right up in Canada by your direction or help. So I appreciate that. But everyone, we will be here again next week with another amazing guest. So I'll see you around next time. Thanks, Kathryn.
Thank you, Meredyth. Such a pleasure.
All right. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening. If you would like to connect on a more personal level, head over to meredythwillits.com or on Instagram at Meredyth with a Y for behind-the-scene footage and outtakes. Please subscribe and come back each week for more Meredyth with a Y. Thanks again for listening.